The Golden Terrace was not just any restaurant. It was a place where chandeliers shone like captured stars, and the marble floor reflected the soft glow of golden light. People came here to celebrate life's biggest moments: weddings, promotions, anniversaries. Everything looked perfect on the outside, but if you worked there, you knew one thing: not every night was golden. There was a name whispered among the staff, with dread: Victor Hale. He was the kind of man who walked into a room and made it feel colder, even if the air was warm. He was rich, far richer than anyone else who dined there. He wore his wealth like armor, with gold cufflinks, a tailored suit, and a cane that had a silver handle shaped like a lion's head. But what made people fear him was not his money, it was his behavior. Victor was impossible to please. No matter how carefully you set the table, how hot the soup was, or how perfect the wine pairing, he would find something wrong. He could turn the smallest mistake into a scene that left the waiter trembling. More than once, he had made a server cry in front of the entire dining room. Some left work early, others never came back. The staff had a name for it: the curse of Table 7, because that was where Victor always sat, right in the center of the restaurant where everyone could see him. It was like his stage, and every server was a reluctant actor in his show. On this Friday night, the air in the kitchen felt tense before the dinner rush even began. The maître d', a tall man named Julian, stood by the entrance with a tight smile. At exactly 7 o'clock, a black luxury car pulled up outside. Through the glass doors, they could see him, the man who made even the head chef's hands shake. "He's here," Julian whispered, his voice barely audible over the clinking of plates. The words traveled through the kitchen like a warning bell. Several waiters who had been standing near the entrance suddenly busied themselves with wiping tables or carrying trays to the far side of the room. The younger ones slipped away into the storage room, pretending to check inventory. No one wanted to face him. No one wanted to be the next victim. Victor Hale entered with the confidence of someone who believed the world owed him everything. His polished shoes tapped sharply against the marble as he walked. He didn't greet anyone. He didn't smile. He simply removed his coat, handed it to Julian without a word, and walked straight to Table 7. He sat down slowly, as if claiming a throne. Then, he tapped his silver lion-headed cane on the floor, twice a sharp sound that echoed in the quiet restaurant. It was his way of summoning a server. But no one came. From behind the pillars in the wine rack, the staff peeked out, exchanging nervous glances. It was like watching someone try to feed a tiger. Everyone was waiting for the unlucky person who would have to step forward. And that was when someone new walked in from the kitchen. Her name was Amara. She had only been working at the Golden Terrace for a week. Tall, graceful, and confident, she carried herself like someone who had seen enough in life to know fear was a choice. Her deep brown skin caught the golden light of the chandeliers, and her eyes had a calm strength that made people notice her. Amara had heard whispers about Victor all week, but she hadn't met him yet. She didn't understand why the room seemed frozen, or why all the other waiters were avoiding one table like it carried bad luck. "What's going on?" she asked quietly, to a fellow waitress who was pretending to rearrange cutlery. "It's him," the woman whispered, tilting her head toward Table 7. "Victor Hale. Don't go near him unless you want to cry before your shift ends." Amara looked at the man sitting in the middle of the room, tapping his cane and glancing around, with an expression that said everyone was already beneath him. The fear in the staff's eyes bothered her. She thought for a moment. Then, without another word, she picked up a menu, straightened her apron, and began walking toward him. The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Amara's footsteps were steady, but she could feel the weight of every eye in the restaurant on her. Even the clinking of glasses seemed to stop as she approached Table 7. Victor Hale looked up slowly, his sharp gaze sweeping over her from head to toe. For a moment, he said nothing. Then his lips curved into a faint, mocking smile. "And who might you be?" he asked in a low voice that carried across the table. Amara kept her own smile polite. "Good evening, sir. My name is Amara. I'll be serving you tonight." Victor's smirk deepened, as though he had just been handed a new game. "Where's Michael?" he asked. "Or did they decide to send me? Fresh talent." The way he said it made the words feel heavy, almost like a test. Amara had seen men like him before, men who used words to push people off balance. She kept her voice calm. "Michael is busy this evening, sir. May I start you off with something to drink?" Victor leaned back in his chair, resting one hand on the silver lion head of his cane. "I suppose they thought sending a pretty face might soften me up. Clever idea. Let's see if it works." The comment stung, but Amara didn't flinch. "Would you prefer sparkling or still water?" she asked evenly. "Still. Cold. No lemon. And don't take longer than 3 minutes," he said, flicking his hand toward her like he was dismissing a servant in an old movie. Amara gave a single nod. Of course. She turned and walked toward the bar, feeling his gaze follow her. All the way behind her, she caught the faintest sound of him muttering, "Let's see how long she lasts." At the bar, the other waiters looked at her with wide eyes. "You're brave," one whispered, "or crazy." Amara poured the water into a crystal glass, making sure there was no lemon, no ice exactly as he'd asked. She wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of catching her in a mistake. When she returned, she placed the glass in front of him gently. "Your water, sir?" Victor took a slow sip, his eyes never leaving hers. He murmured. "Acceptable." Then, without warning, he added, "Tell me, how long have you been working here?" "A week," she replied. "A week," he repeated, as though tasting the word. "That means you don't know the rules yet. That's good. I prefer breaking in new people myself." Amara tilted her head slightly. "I'm here to make sure you enjoy your evening. That's all." Victor chuckled. "We'll see about that. Bring me the soup of the day, and tell the chef I want it hot enough to burn the roof of my mouth." She gave another nod and headed for the kitchen. As soon as she disappeared through the swinging doors, the head chef Marcus turned toward her. "You got him?" he asked, surprise written on his face. "Yes," Amara said simply. Marcus sighed. "He's particular. If it's not perfect, he'll send it back. If it is perfect, he'll still send it back." Amara smiled faintly. "Then I guess I'll just have to keep bringing it until he's happy." She carried the soup back out, steam curling in the air, and placed it in front of Victor. He dipped a spoon in, took one taste, and set it down. "This isn't hot enough," he said flatly. "I can have it reheated immediately," she replied. He studied her for a moment, as if waiting for her to look nervous, but she didn't. She simply picked up the bowl and walked back toward the kitchen. From the corner of her eye, she saw the other waiters watching with a mix of pity and admiration. No one had ever taken his comments so calmly. Amara didn't know how the rest of the night would go, but one thing was certain: she wasn't going to run. Not tonight, not ever. The soup returned to Victor Hale's table, steaming so much that a small cloud hung above it. Amara placed it down carefully. "Here you go, sir. As hot as you requested." Victor looked at her with narrowed eyes before tasting it again. He didn't complain this time, but he didn't compliment it either. He simply placed the spoon down, dabbed his mouth with the napkin, and said, "Better. But you're slow." "I had time to think about other things while waiting." Amara met his gaze calmly. "I'm sorry you felt that way, sir. I'll work on being quicker." He leaned forward slightly. "You're not like the others. They apologize too much. They scramble. They beg you. Stand there like you're not afraid of me." Her lips curved into the faintest smile. "Should I be?" The question caught him off guard. A flicker of something maybe surprised across his face before it disappeared. "We'll see," he said, leaning back in his chair. "Bring me the steak, medium rare. If it's anything less, I'll send it back. If it's more, I'll send it back too." and tell the chef to season it better than he usually does." Amara wrote the order down, though she knew she didn't have to. She remembered everything. As she walked to the kitchen, she could feel the eyes of the diners on her. It was as if the whole room was invested in this strange battle between the unbearable man and the new waitress. In the kitchen, Marcus looked stressed. "He's already complaining." "Only a little," Amara replied. "Let's make the steak perfect." Marcus sighed. "It won't matter. To him, nothing is perfect." When the steak was ready, Amara brought it out, placing it before Victor with a quiet grace. The aroma of roasted garlic and herbs rose from the plate. Victor picked up his knife and fork, cutting into the meat. "Too much salt," he said immediately, pushing the plate away. "I can have another made for you, sir," Amara offered. He shook his head slowly, studying her as if waiting for a crack. "To show you're not frustrated." "I don't get frustrated doing my job," she replied. "I just try again." Victor smirked. "That's boring. I like it when people lose their temper." "I'm sorry to disappoint you," Amara said, her voice steady but not cold. For a moment, there was silence between them. Victor's eyes narrowed, and then he leaned in, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "People like you should be grateful to even be serving someone like me." The words landed like a challenge. He wasn't talking about just her being a new waitress. He was talking about who she was, about the way she looked, about everything she represented. But Amara didn't let the sting show. She met his gaze without flinching. "I'm grateful for the chance to work," she said softly. "But respect is something I give and expect in return, no matter who I'm serving." His smirk faltered for just a second. Then, with a small laugh, he waved her away. "Go, bring me the bread. Maybe you can get that right." She walked back to the kitchen, the eyes of the staff following her. "What did he say this time?" one of the waiters whispered. "Nothing I can't handle," Amara replied, picking up the warm bread basket, and she meant it. It wasn't just about serving Victor Hale anymore. It was about standing her ground, showing him and everyone else watching that no amount of money or arrogance could make her forget her own worth. The night was far from over, and Amara knew he would test her again. But deep down, she felt something shifting. This wasn't just a battle over food or service, it was a battle over dignity, and she wasn't about to lose. By the time Amara returned with the bread, the restaurant felt like it was holding its breath. The golden light from the chandeliers shimmered over polished tables, but the warmth of the room didn't touch table 7. Victor Hale took the breadbasket from her without a word. He tore off a piece, chewed slowly, then set it down with a faint shake of his head. "Stale," he said flatly. "It was baked this morning," Sir Amara replied, still calm. "Morning isn't good enough," he muttered. "Bread should be made an hour before serving." "I understand," she said, even though she knew most customers would find the bread perfect. She turned toward the kitchen, but his voice stopped her. "You keep agreeing with me," Victor said, his tone sharp. "Are you just pretending, or do you actually mean it?" Amara faced him again. "I mean that I'm here to serve you as best I can. If you think something could be better, I will try to make it better." He studied her for a long moment, leaning back in his chair. "You're very composed." "That's not common. It's just who I am," she said simply. Victor gave a small, humorless laugh. "Then maybe I should test how long you can stay that way." The next hour became a series of challenges. First, he sent back the salad because the lettuce looked tired. Amara replaced it without a sigh. Then he claimed the wine wasn't the right temperature, even though the sommelier assured her it was perfect. She fetched another bottle anyway. Each time, Victor watched her closely, like a scientist studying an experiment. Around them, the staff whispered in disbelief. Some peeked from behind columns, just to see if she would finally break. But Amara didn't give him the satisfaction. She walked, served, and spoke with the same quiet strength she'd had from the moment she approached him. Inside, though, she could feel the pressure building. She thought of the rent due at the end of the month, of the bills that waited for her at home. She thought of the long bus rides she took to get here every day, the second job she worked on weekends, and the small hope that this job at the Golden Terrace might finally help her build something stable. She couldn't afford to let him get under her skin. Not now. Not ever. Finally, after sending back a dessert for being too sweet, Victor rested his elbows on the table and clasped his hands together. Tell me, Amara, why did you even take this job? Surely there are easier places to work. I wanted a challenge, she replied. His brow lifted slightly. And do you think you've found one? I think I've found someone who likes to see how far people can bend before they break, she said. Her voice was still polite, but there was a quiet firmness underneath. Victor smiled faintly. Interesting. And do you plan to bend or break? Neither, Amara said. I plan to stand. That answer seemed to amuse him. For the first time all night, his smile looked almost genuine. We'll see, he murmured. As she turned to clear the table, Amara noticed something strange. The other diners were watching them, not with the discomfort they'd shown earlier, but with interest. It was as if they could sense that something was happening here, something more than just a difficult customer and a patient waitress. And, in a way, they were right. This wasn't just a night at the Golden Terrace anymore. It was becoming a quiet, unspoken contest, one that wasn't about food at all. It was about respect, and neither of them seemed ready to back down. By the time the clock in the corner struck 9, the dinner rush was at its peak. Glasses clinked, forks scraped plates, and quiet conversations filled the air. But at table 7, all of that seemed far away. The space between Victor Hale and Amara was like a private battleground, calm on the surface, tense underneath. Victor had eaten more than half his meal, but his mood hadn't softened. If anything, he seemed more determined to provoke her. He tapped his silver lion-headed cane against the floor twice. The sharp sound cut through the hum of the restaurant. Amara walked over, her steps steady. Yes, sir. Victor leaned back in his chair, studying her like a man deciding the value of something. Do you know who I am? Yes, sir, she said evenly. You're Mr. Victor Hale. His lips curved into that familiar smirk. Then you know I expect perfection. And you've failed me tonight, twice. Her eyes didn't waver. I've done my best to meet your requests, sir. Your best, he repeated, rolling the words on his tongue as if tasting them. Your best isn't enough for someone like me. People like you. He paused deliberately, letting the silence stretch. Should be grateful to even be in this room. The words hit with the weight of a personal attack. Around them, the other diners froze, forks halfway to their mouths. A waiter near the bar turned away quickly, as if not wanting to witness what might come next. Amara felt the sting, but she didn't let it show. She could have walked away, letting the insult pass like so many before her. She could have smiled and pretended she hadn't heard the meaning behind his words. But she thought of the waiters who had left crying, the ones who had quit after facing him. She thought of every person who had been made to feel small because someone richer, louder, and meaner decided they could. She decided no more. Mr. Hale, she said softly, but her voice carried to every corner of the room. Your money might let you buy the best table here, but it doesn't buy respect. That goes both ways. Victor's smirk faded just a little. I've treated you with kindness all evening, she continued, her tone calm but firm, even when you tried to make me feel less than I am. But I'm not less, and neither is anyone who works here. The restaurant was silent now. The chandeliers glittered above them, but no one moved, no one spoke. Victor tilted his head, his eyes narrowing. Do you know what happens to people who talk to me like that? Amara met his gaze without hesitation. Maybe they lose something. Maybe they keep their dignity. Either way, I'm willing to find out. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. Then, unexpectedly, Victor leaned back in his chair and let out a short laugh, not mocking, but almost surprised. "Well," he said quietly, "you've got guts." Amara didn't respond. She simply stood there, waiting. He waved a hand toward the table. "Go on then, bring me the dessert menu. Let's see if you can get that right." As she walked away, she could hear faint whispers from nearby tables. Some were smiling, others just looked relieved. But all of them knew they had just seen something rare, someone standing their ground, even when it wasn't easy. And deep down, Amara knew something had shifted. This wasn't just about surviving the night anymore. It was about proving that no amount of arrogance could break a person who knew their worth. After Amara's words, the restaurant didn't return to normal right away. Conversations were quieter, eyes still glanced toward table 7, and the air seemed charged with something unspoken. Victor Hale sat there, not eating, not drinking, just watching her as she moved about her work. When she returned with the dessert menu, he didn't reach for it. Instead, he rested his cane against the table and folded his hands. "Sit," he said. Amara hesitated. "I'm working, sir." "I know," he replied, his tone softer than before. "Sit." Against her instincts, she pulled out the chair across from him and sat, keeping her back straight. Victor leaned forward, elbows resting on the white tablecloth. "Do you think I enjoy being this way?" Amara didn't answer right away. She had learned that sometimes silence made people speak more. He gave a humorless laugh. "Of course you do. Everyone thinks so, and maybe they're right. But here's the truth: most people in my world are liars. They smile at me because they want something. They pretend to care, but they don't. I've grown used to testing people just to see if they're real." Her eyes softened slightly, though her voice remained steady. "You think insulting people will show you who's real? It shows me who will stay," he said, "who won't crumble, who might be worth trusting." She tilted her head. "And have you found many worth trusting?" His eyes flickered, and for the first time all night, he looked almost tired. "No." Amara let the silence linger before she spoke. "You don't have to tear people down to see who they are. You could just be honest. You might be surprised how many stay when you treat them with respect." He studied her for a long moment, as if weighing the truth in her words. "Respect," he repeated quietly. "That's a word I haven't heard from anyone here in years, unless it's followed by Sir or Mr. Hale. Maybe it's time you heard it without the fear attached," she said. He gave a slow nod, leaning back in his chair. "You've handled yourself better than most people I've met, and you didn't run, even when I gave you every reason to." "That's because I know who I am," Amara said, "and that doesn't change based on how someone else treats me." For a moment, the arrogance in his face faded completely. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time, not just as a waitress, but as a person. Finally, he picked up the dessert menu. "I'll have the chocolate soufflé," he said, his tone lighter now, "and tell the chef to make it the way he likes it. I trust his taste." Amara gave a small nod and stood. "Very well, sir." As she walked back to the kitchen, she noticed something different in the way the diners were looking at her now. It wasn't just curiosity, it was admiration. Some gave her small smiles. One older woman even mouthed the words, "Good for you." In the kitchen, Marcus raised his eyebrows. Did he just order dessert without complaining first? "Seems so," Amara replied with a faint smile, when she brought the soufflé out. Victor thanked her quietly, 2 words no one on the staff could remember hearing from him. The night was almost over, but Amara knew this wasn't just the end of a shift. Something had changed at table 7, and for the first time, it felt like the balance of power in that room wasn't determined by money, but by respect. The chocolate soufflé arrived at table 7, warm and perfect, its rich aroma drifting into the air. Amara placed it before Victor without a word, only offering the polite smile she had given every customer that night. Victor picked up his spoon, broke through the soft crust, and took a bite. For a moment, he closed his eyes. Then he set the spoon down and looked at her. "It's good," he said simply. It wasn't much, but to the staff peeking from behind the bar, those two words were shocking. Victor Hale never complimented anything. Amara gave a small nod. "I'm glad you enjoyed it." He didn't say anything else as he finished the dessert. But when he was done, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a heavy-looking envelope. Without looking at her, he placed it on the table. "For you," he said. Amara hesitated. "Sir, that's not necessary. Consider it payment," he said, his eyes fixed on her, "not for the food, for the truth. No one has spoken to me the way you did in years. Maybe no one ever has." She slowly took the envelope and tucked it into her apron without opening it. "I didn't say anything extraordinary, Mr. Hale. I just treated you the way I'd want to be treated, and I asked for the same in return." His mouth curved into a faint, almost tired smile. "That's more extraordinary than you think." Mata D approached quietly to hand Victor his coat. As he stood, Victor paused and looked around the restaurant. The diners were watching him, some pretending not to, others openly curious. Then, in a voice loud enough for the nearby tables to hear, he said, "This young woman is the only reason I'll be back here. Make sure she's here next time I come." Gasps and whispers spread across the room. Victor Hale, the man known for tearing down servers, had just praised one openly. He left without his usual sharp clack of cane on marble, moving slower, almost thoughtful. The door closed behind him, and the room seemed to exhale. Amara finally opened the envelope. Inside was a note written in strong, looping handwriting, "For the first person who ever told me the truth to my face." Alongside it was a tip so large that her hands trembled holding it, more than she made in an entire month. The other waiters gathered around, their voices full of awe. "What did you say to him?" one asked. "Nothing special," she replied with a small smile. "I just didn't let him decide who I was." From that night on, things changed at the Golden Terrace. The staff no longer fled to the kitchen when Victor Hale's car pulled up outside. And strangely, when he came back, he was never quite as unbearable. He still had high standards, still pointed out flaws, but there was something different in his tone, something closer to respect. And whenever Amara served him, he never once insulted her. For Amara, it wasn't just about the tip or the unexpected praise. It was about the quiet victory of standing her ground. She had faced a man who seemed untouchable, a man who made others shrink away, and she had shown him that dignity couldn't be bought or broken. That night, as she left the restaurant and stepped into the cool air, she felt lighter. She thought of all the people who had been in that room, diners, waiters, even Victor himself, and she knew they had seen something important. They had seen that even in a world where money and power could make others bow, courage and self could still stand tall, and sometimes that was enough to change more than just one person. It could change the whole room.